Hi, I'm Carolina with alwaysexpectmore.com and 30minutecrafts.com, and we're getting ready to start week 2 of our Cricut Maker block of the week. It's a mini quilt that we're making from start to finish using the Cricut Maker to cut all of our pieces. This block 2 is the uneven 9 patch. Super simple to put together, very similar to the 9 patch that we did last week, but just a little bit of a different look. Are you ready? Let's get started. To make our uneven 9 patch, we're going to be using 3 different fabrics. Grab the fabric you've labeled as white, yellow, and pink. Again, it doesn't matter what fabrics they actually are, but these labels let us know which fabrics we're picking every time we're using the file in Design Space. Now, we've used these fabrics before. This white we used for our first block, our 9 patch. So what we're going to do is just use our scissors and trim off the excess. You can start a scrap basket for these for a scrap project. And we're going to do the same with our pink, which also has a little bit of scrap at the top. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and get rid of those scraps, all gone, and we'll put our fabric on our mats. Now, fabric has a raw edge, which we can see on this piece and on this piece, and a selvage edge. The fabric in the Cricut packs already has a raw edge setup and a selvage edge setup. If you didn't get fabric from these packs, you'll need to cut off a raw edge. Make sure that you're putting the raw edge up against the top of your mat every time. Or if you're choosing to leave the selvage on, like with this piece right here, what you would do is extend the selvage up beyond the top of this line right here. And the reason we do that is because we don't want our blocks to cut into our selvage at all. This has a little bit of a different weave to it, and it can actually distort when you wash your quilt. And if you have any of those little holes or dots in your actual quilt top when it's finished, not tucked away in the seam allowance, it isn't going to be very attractive. So we want to make sure we're not using those. Go ahead and put your fabric on your mats. I've found that leaving it just dangling off the edge is not a big deal. I like to line up against the side and across the top and rub in place. If you have a brayer, this is where you would use your brayer. And then definitely down on the side, I like to go in with my fingers on the sides because that's where that black roller hits, and it's where I find I have lift, if any. So the middle isn't quite as important as making sure I get these sides. I'm going to go ahead and prep all 3 of my mats. You can use the 12 by 12 mats or the 12 by 24 mats. Either is fine. With the 12 by 24, you won't have any fabric over off the edge. If your label's in the way, just move it. And you can stick it back in place later. Make sure you're putting your fabric right side down. Now that we have our mats prepped, we're ready to go on over to the maker. I have the uneven 9 patch pulled up in Design Space. I'm going to go ahead and press continue. I have something else on my mat already, which I'm going to replace. And I'm going to start with that pink mat. Hit continue. My fabric is going to be cotton. I'm going to need my fabric pen, my rotary blade, and then load my mat. I'll grab my fabric pen, put the lid on the back, plug it in, close it up. I already have my fabric blade in. I'm ready to load my mat. It's going to go ahead and draw all my lines and cut all my fabrics. My cut's complete. So I pull out my mat. And now it's time for my white mat. Even though I've pressed go, it often likes to remind me that I need the pen. Yes, I have it. I'll press go again. Our cutting's complete. The very first thing we want to do is unload this pen and put the cap back on to keep it from drying out. I like keeping my pen right here, so it's handy when I need it again. We're done cutting. We can head on over to the ironing board and sewing machine. We've cut out all our pieces and pulled them off the mat just like we did in week 1. And now we're going to lay out our block. The uneven 9 patch has this yellow in the middle, the large square, and then 4 small squares in the corners. And 4 rectangles along the sides. Just like the 9 patch that we did last week, here, which has 9 patches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces, but they're not square and they're not all the same size. We've got small squares, big squares, and rectangles. But we're going to piece it together the exact same way. We're going to make row 1, then row 2, then row 3, and then we're going to piece our rows together. So let's go ahead and turn on the sewing machine and get started with our sewing. Line up your pieces. Make sure you're sewing on the correct side. Your threads go to the back, at the top, press your foot down, and we'll sew our first seam. Because these two blocks are so similar, I want to show you a quick trick that'll actually make sewing the block together a little faster. You don't have to stop and cut your threads between each set of seams. We can put together our next seam, and as long as we don't let the fabric from this first set overlap the fabric of the next set, so allow a couple stitches between, put your next set under the presser foot, you can keep stitching. This is called chain piecing and will save you a little bit of time when you're putting your quilts together. Make sure you stitch just a little past the end then go on to the next piece. Now when you've stitched all 3 of these together, you can either use the blade on the side of your machine or scissors to cut the pieces apart. Then put the pieces back in the right order to double check that we've got everything going just right. And we do. So now we can chain piece these next 3 seams together. Grab our threads to the back. That came together so much quicker without stopping between each seam. So we're going to flip these over, and just like last time, we need to press. Because anytime you're going across a seam that you've already sewn, you want the seam you've already sewn to be pressed. Just like last time, we're going to press these in towards the dark, this out towards the light, this in towards the dark, and that'll allow us to nest our seams. In, out, in. There we go. They're all pressed flat. 2 more seams and this quilt block is done. I'm going to nest those seams, feel it with my finger, line up the top, press our foot down, threads to the back. Now with this, I can feel that this bottom seam kind of caught a little bit on my sewing machine. So with my needle down, I'm going to lift up my presser foot and poke that back underneath. Presser foot back down and keep stitching. I'm going to make sure that these bottom seams nest and stitch the end. We can't do chain piecing here because this piece needs to be attached here and there's no way to chain it. So the top, cut the thread, and then especially with beginning sewists, I like to make sure that we put it down each time to make sure everything lines up and we have it where we need. Otherwise, you find that you might accidentally stitch these 2 pieces to one another and have to do some seam ripping. So I like to lay it out, make sure I have the correct pieces lined up, and then I can sew. Nest those pieces, line up the edges, threads to the back. Line up this bottom. I felt it again here that this bottom piece likes to tuck in, so I'm lifting up my presser foot with the needle down, tucking everything back in. and finishing my seam. I know I won't have any bumps or lumps or bulges where those seams meet. Now a quick press. I like to press these seams out. I'm going to tuck this in and press out. This block, once sewn together, if you wanted to measure it up, should be 6.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So this looks just about perfect. And it's that easy to put together the uneven 9 patch. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave any questions or comments below, and make sure you subscribe to this channel so you get all the updates on all the other blocks. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!